people? We're back for another episode of The Panel. Did you see the last episode? Did you see how lit it was? The experience, the gems. Our panelists are still here, you know. They haven't gone. Rob.
Yep, you know the thing. Amazing energy, amazing guests.
Yeah.
Let's keep it moving. Let's what's the next topic, bruv? What's the...
Whoa. Wait. You know what we always do before we go in?
No,
guys.
wait a minute. Have they done it yet?
Wait.
Are they?
Yeah.
Can you see
see it?
Is it in the corner?
People, can you not see it?
I think it's on my corner.
Like, literally, can you not see it? Yeah, you should see it. Look, you like
and
subscribe, and you share. Yeah? The panel. Yeah? Literally. No, wait, you guys can't see it? Can't you see it? Press it. Can you see it? On the screen. Right there. Exactly. So you like, subscribe, and share. Like I said, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on YouTube. We're on... What else are we on?
iTunes is coming soon.
iTunes coming soon, and Spotify. Yeah, and remember,
yeah,
guys, you can use it as CPD. You know, as CPD for any professionals, education, social care, camps, police. All this is CPD. Yeah. All right. So, next episode, adult mental health. I think this is quite an important topic. You know, adult mental health, because like, do you know what? I mean. And you all experience this, you know, like when you're at work or you're on a high street, and then you see quite a lot of adults and they just walk in and their presentation's quite poor. They might be speaking to themselves, and I always think to myself, like, I really, really think that adults with mental health, they are getting forgotten about. I just think it's become very, very, very normalized, and I just really, really feel that we need to get a grip on it, because it isn't something that's nice to really see. Particularly, I know I'm talking as a children's social worker, but when, you know, young people turn 18, being able to get access to the right services they're not, I just think it's quite sad. So I just think for us really just to kind of talk about what the solutions are, why we continuing to see this. Do the government really have a grip on adults with mental health?
I think the first question though, bro, to be honest with you, is the more simplistic question: what is mental health? Because even as adults, there are a lot of adults, believe it or not, who don't even, if you ask them what is mental health, they couldn't even tell you or explain what it is to you. So maybe our guests could, like, maybe, I don't know, from their point of view, what is mental health?
Precious, what's mental health?
So it's a tricky thing. So mental health is, I guess, just the understanding of how healthy are you mentally. So I think sometimes mental health gets interchanged with mental illness and being unwell and in your well-being. But mental health is just kind of like your physical health. It's just your state of mental well-being. When you have mental health illnesses or even just poor well-being, it's basically the idea that you are struggling with being able to uphold a specific level of functioning. There's a lot of distress happening. And, you know, things like certain symptoms that you might experience, they're on a spectrum. Most of the symptoms that you experience in mental health illnesses are on a spectrum, but when you're looking at when it becomes a significant thing is how distressing is it for you? How does it affect your life? Are you able to function and live life effectively? If no, then there is now a point in which you are probably suffering from a mental health illness, which is similar to if you have a physical health issue. There are, you know, if you have a common cold, for example, a lot of those symptoms are shared with things like the flu. Yeah. But it's about what is the severity of this and how effective are you at living your life functionally.
Deandra, what's mental health?
Yeah, following from what Precious said, it's basically how are you coping within yourself mentally. And what Precious also mentioned about, you know, a lot of people think it's mental illness. As soon as you bring up, how's your mental health? A lot of people go, what are you trying to say? Everyone gets really defensive because they're trying to say, are you saying that there's something wrong with me? But mental health can be multiple things. It can be about how are you coping with your day-to-day life? Like, are you looking after yourself? How are you coping physically? You know, so people misconstrue what mental health really means. It's about your well-being and how you're looking after you. And can you do certain things? And is your mental actually affecting the things that you can do? So that's my point of view of that.
What I want to ask you all is that one of the things that regularly that I see, and I think it's important that I say this because I know we're coming off the last episode to do with CAMS, and I think it feeds in very well to this episode to do with adult mental health. And I was just reflecting on what Precious was saying about cultural competency. Within the Black community, and it's important that I say this, mental health very much is a taboo. And I think that whenever we kind of talk about it and we raise anything to do with mental health, it's kind of shunned. And it's more trying to get understanding, like we're all Black professionals here. Why is it when it comes to mental health, I know that obviously we are getting a lot more better in terms of raising awareness in terms of what the issues are within the community, and in fact that actually it's not something that should be seen as a taboo. But why is it there's still that kind of, you know, let's say African Caribbean households, like mental health, no, oh, you haven't got a mental health issue, oh, no, let's not talk about it. Why is it there's still that kind of lack of education within our community?
Yeah. For what I've seen, and even like from my own family background and just, you know, people that I know, as soon as you bring up the word, you know, I need to explore mental health, or I'm not feeling too good with myself mentally, the first thing is if you go and speak to a professional, they go into section you.
Right.
And I've seen it as well with like friends and their family where, you know, a parent or someone has raised it, you know, to a professional saying, I'm not okay mentally, and they've been sectioned. So there wasn't enough support. They're instantly put under the Mental Health Act rather than getting the proper interventions before actually going, okay, now maybe we need to look at the Mental Health Act. But there's not enough, I feel like when it comes to Black people, there's not enough support around that. They
Right.
feel like they're being neglected rather than being supported.
Right.
So that's what I've personally seen, and that's a common thing I've seen when I used to work with adults as well. They're very much afraid to come in for the support because what are you going to do to me next? And am I safe under your care, or am I going to be sectioned? Because that's what family has basically explained to them. If you go and look for support, you will be sectioned and you'll never come back the same person again. So that's the experience I've basically seen.
Precious?
I think I agree, but I do feel like I guess when I'm thinking about community psychology, there is part of the ethnic diversity of how we seek for help is a very important factor in why maybe some ethnic communities don't focus so much on mental health. I think for the Black community, whether it's African or Caribbean, the way in which they seek for help is very different. You know, there's other avenues, whether it's Christianity or religion or family or even just old cultural things of how do they seek help, how do they keep themselves well. There's a lot of trust that is placed in more traditional things for them, or at least things that have been passed down familial, because it feels safer, it feels more inclined to protect you. I think we also have to take into consideration there's a long history of Black people having really difficult experiences with medical professionals, difficult experiences with government services, national health services, how they're treated, how they're looked after. There was a lot of trauma there. So I guess it's a two-pronged thing of, one, how are Black people seeking for help? How do they even view mental well-being and stress?
Right.
And, you know, the way that we view stress and mental well-being is different from different cultures. Some people see it as anxiety and depression. Some people see it as physical pain. So it just depends on their own perceptions and how they view those things and how that affects, you know, where they seek for help, and then what have they heard from other people's experiences? How did that sort of, I guess, secondhand trauma that they get as a result? So it does make it difficult, and it does, you know, understandably, you understand why people struggle to talk about those things. And then there's the stigma of mental health.
That's right.
And the shame that can sometimes unfairly come from someone experiencing mental health illnesses. And it also depends on the condition experienced, because I think we're living in an age where some conditions have been glamorized and they've been, you know, made popular and almost kind of given a really good PR.
Yeah, good point.
And so people are now more inclined to say, you know, I experience anxiety, I experience depression, I experience ADHD or, you know, ADD or all these things, but they won't talk about psychosis. They're not going to talk about schizophrenia.
No.
Now they might be more inclined to talk about bipolar. But again, are they going to talk about things like personality disorder and how that affects people, and, you know, in a way that isn't just based around being violent. So I think there was a lot of aspects of what causes people from specific communities to not want to talk about
Do you know?
mental health.
I'm going to say something a little bit crazy, believe it or not. Now, so social media, all right. In particular, TikTok, YouTube. In fact, all of them. To be honest with you. Now, social media can be a gift and a curse. It can be the yin and the yang, negative and positive. For me, right now, it's quite negative, quite toxic, to be honest with you. But believe it or not, I'm going to be talking from an education point of view and also as a male myself. Okay, right? Yeah. There's a stigma with males. If you think about a man is masculine, strong,
Yeah.
a leader, can't cry. Right, we cry for a bruv, yeah, all right? But believe it or not, social media, to a degree, it's also provided a bit of a safe space where we can now visualize these podcasts or these short little documentaries now. And it kind of makes you, it makes it kind of cool to like, okay, do you know, it's actually okay to say, hey, brother, do you know what, man, I'm having a bad day today, you know? Or,
Yeah.
I'm not, do you understand where I'm coming from, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But also for the young ones, so for young males that I work with, fam, I want to talk about, there's nothing wrong with me, man. You know, they've got this pride, it's the ego, it's the, they don't want to let their guard down and everything yet. So for me, to a degree, social media has actually, to a degree, helped it to be cool, but it's also provided a safe space. But a question I want to ask you guys as well, females, because as a man myself, you know, I see it as a black man and as a black professional, but do females handle mental health more better, or how do they handle it? Yeah, for me, do females handle mental health better than men or better than males?
Rob, one sec, before Precious
Yeah.
and Deandra answer, I just want to go back to what you were saying about social media mental health, because I think Precious made a very, very, very big point, is that I think what I've seen on social media as well is that I think she's right, that often, you know, people will talk about and go and say that, you know, I've got anxiety, I've got depression and all those sorts of things. But then there's also a part of the social media as well, at times, that I think mental health also is used as a PR stunt, which I've seen. And I think what's happening with that is that we're losing focus of the fact, actually, you know what, there's a lot of adults who genuinely have mental health concerns. And the conversations that Precious you spoke about in terms of psychosis, that it's like nobody wants to go into that deeper route. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of
But you know why though, innit? All right, so
go on.
Once again, the media, right? Yeah, what is the media's point of view, or what is the media's perception on these subjects? So straight away, they're getting mad, or there's something wrong with them. But if you really dig deep into it, right? Yeah, what is the reason why these subject matters are not really spoken about on a more mature and positive point of view? Now, once again, I'm going to use TikTok as an example now. Some of the behaviour I've seen on these subject matters, they're quite toxic. In fact, it's quite dark. It's very dark, in fact, right? Yeah.
The duty of care, Rob, when it comes to
So it's normal. So it's dysfunction, but it's a normalized dysfunction behavior.
Yeah. So the duty of care for mental health, for me, being a social worker and what I've seen, the duty of care at the moment right now is not kind of there. It isn't, because even when you talk about mental health, language. When you bring up mental health, Deandra said it. Oh, am I mad? Do you know what I mean? No, do you know what I'm trying to say? Straight away. Oh, no, I'm not mad. It's like, no, it's sometimes it's not about a diagnosis. It's just to kind of see, actually, are you okay? The same thing, Rob, what you mentioned about us as men, particularly black men. A lot of the young people that we work with, when you talk about mental health, now, there ain't nothing wrong with me. No, like, are you okay? So I think part of what we need to do also is that the mental health kind of like umbrella, we need to kind of sometimes, I think, separate diagnosis from actually how you genuinely feeling. Like, you feeling low doesn't necessarily mean you have a mental health diagnosis. Doesn't mean you're schizophrenic. It might just mean, you know what, this particular day, I'm feeling very low. I just need someone to speak to. Then you separate it. You've got those who actually have a diagnosis, who actually need the support. Like we talk about men's mental health because it's about men being able to have the space to talk about and feel vulnerable. And I think a lot of men, men don't feel comfortable to go and say that actually, you know what? No, my mental health is completely off.
Do you
know what I mean?
But then do you know as well? And this is the conversations I have with some of my professionals right here. So if you stay in bed for 2 days in a row, yeah, and I don't know, you're watching Netflix and TV 2 days in a row now, yeah, you haven't left the house, you might not even bathed, right? Yeah, you might just maybe clean your teeth. You get a phone call from a friend. Oh yeah, what are you up to? Oh, just in bed. But you was in bed yesterday. Is everything okay? Hang on a minute. What? I'm fine. Do you know what I mean? But it's almost like it's the perception again as well.
Yeah.
There's this perception, and I don't know whether it's culturally, the media, just the world we live in as a whole.
I think it's a double-edged sword because I think on social media there's been a lot of talk about mental health and how you're doing and things like that, which I think is great. Mm-hmm. But on the other side, you get a lot of people who push this idea of there is this optimal place of well-being that exists which doesn't exist. Everyone has very different levels of operation, and what is optimal for one person isn't necessarily optimal for the other person. Yeah, somebody might be able to wake up at 4 a.m, make breakfast, go to the gym, do this, do that, and they're like, I'm functioning great. And then somebody else is looking at them like, I can't do that, and think there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
I think there's this almost a standardization of well-being that is being pushed that doesn't exist. Well-being is on a spectrum, and it's very much contextually based on what are your predispositions, what are your social, biological, psychological factors that determine what is optimal well-being for you. It isn't a one-size-fits-all. And that's the same with also being unwell. The way that people present in things like anxiety, depression, psychosis, bipolar, any form of condition, it differs because everyone is uniquely different. Their experience is different. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. So for someone sitting in bed for 2 days, maybe they haven't had a shower, they haven't brushed their teeth. Okay, somebody's going, are you all right? But on Monday morning, they got up, they showered, they brushed their teeth, they went to work on time, they did their job, they came home, they made dinner, they sat in front of the TV, they chilled. They picked up the phone, they called their partner, their friends, they played some video games, they went to bed again, got up for the week, was able to do it and function, and they were feeling okay. But maybe the weekend is their time where they can just have a recharge. Maybe next weekend they're going to go out, have a party, go clubbing, see friends. Yeah. So I think it's about knowing that it's standard well-being.
So what that is, that's how you basically quantify everyone's mental, because everybody is different. So it's the methodology behind it. And then it's like, how do you quantify that? So even if somebody is in bed, as what you said, Precious, like, for 2 days or so, but maybe the rest of the week they got up and did their business.
Yeah.
And went to work.
Guess what though, bro? But then, oh God, all right. If you type on Google depression, yeah, which is a form of mental health, yeah, all right, and you put male depression, if a man stayed in his room or stayed in his bed for 2 days, they say it's a sign of depression. That's what it says.
Well, number one, Google is really not the place that you should be.
Yes.
I say this to I say this to everyone. Please don't Google stuff.
Yes.
And if you are going to Google stuff, please just go to the nhs.co.uk website.
Yeah. So can you repeat that, please?
nhs.co.uk. Just go there, please. But also, I think in I guess accordance to that, yes, the way that depression comes and manifests in men can be different to how it manifests in women. So I think that maybe be a little bit where it's coming from, is that the way that we view depression in men isn't the same way that we view depression in women. Just like with the way we view autism in men is not how we view autism in women, and that's why a lot of women go undiagnosed with autism for a very long time.
Why is that though?
Because women tend to be better at masking. And also a lot of the research has been based on male participants who have autism.
Right.
So a lot of our understanding of autism comes from autism in men rather than autism in women. So that's why. It's same with ADHD, same with ADD, Asperger's, all of those conditions, which aren't necessarily a mental health illness. They're just a condition, a neurodivergent condition They're not like a mental health illness. I think some people get that confused.
Yeah,
They view that, if you have autism, you're mentally ill. No, you just you just have a neurodivergent condition.
Yeah.
But the research in all those things are mainly done in men. So when a woman has autism, ADHD, ADD, Asperger's, whatever, it's harder to diagnose because a lot of the symptoms and the way it presents is wrapped around men. Just like, for example, when it comes to Black people and medicine, and how a lot of the research isn't based on our physiology, our physical, all the things that we experience. So a lot of the things that come into play when it comes to medical help can be discrepancies for when it comes to treating Black people. So it's the same logic, essentially. But I think, so the way that it does present, it can be different, and it's not all the time, but it can be, and there is a pattern there. But I think it's also about, as you said, looking at how you qualify well-being. Because, for example, that person sitting at home for 2 days, they could have been in bed reading. They could have been in bed watching a show that they really love, catching up on shows they didn't have time to catch up on in the week. Does it stop them from going to the toilet? Does it stop them from eating? Does it stop them from talking to their friends? Do they have reduced sleep? All of these things that help you to qualify how are you resting? This could just be how they rest. Granted, okay, cool. I think the idea is that, you should get up and walk and be physically active, and that's fair. But then what if they've had 5 days of going to the gym?
That's right.
What if they do a job in which they have to be up and down and there's a lot of physical exertion that happens? So on the weekend they just want to chill. There is a lot of contextual things that you have to look at to when you're qualifying someone's well-being.
That's where the toxic part of like social media comes into it as well. So you can, like you were saying, Precious, like you can be in bed and you can just be doing your day-to-day thing, you're chilling, just relaxing because you've had a long working day. But then you got you go on TikTok first thing and it's like, you haven't done anything today, you should be getting up at like 5 a.m, getting your work on, doing something productive for yourself, and you're like, wow, I need to be doing better. So then the question is, when is anything ever going to be enough? Because most of us sit down and we're trying to measure ourselves to social media. But then you have to remember that a lot of people are just doing a lot of content. Some things they're doing may not even be the reality of society. So people feel this demand, like, I have to be more like them. And then it idolizes that. So then even things like, I don't know, red pill talk, for example, the big demand on men around that, for example, as well. You've got a lot of, like, if we're talking about young people and adults, it's that demand, like, I can't have emotions. I need to be a man. Men don't cry. Men don't have feelings. Men need to crack on. So whenever they are feeling down, it's like, no, because so-and-so said, I need to be okay, because a man doesn't have emotions. That's a woman's thing. But what makes that a woman's thing?
No, emotions are definitely not a woman's thing. Emotions are something that as human beings we all need. Like anger is an emotion, happiness is an emotion, frustration is an emotion, being irritable, annoyed, all of those are all, forms of emotions. And I think sometimes we pick and choose what emotions we think are acceptable and what emotions we think we can have, but everyone has a range of emotions. It's about whether or not you have the ability to express them in the way that makes you feel comfortable. Do you have the vocabulary to talk about your emotions in a way that seems
that's an important point
to make sense to people? And sometimes, unfortunately, some people just don't have the vocabulary, and it's not always just a man thing. I think it's more visible in males, but women also struggle maybe necessarily having the vocabulary to talk about, this is how I'm feeling, or even having the skills to be reflective to say, this is how I'm feeling, and this might be why this is happening, and this is what I'm going to do about it.
Do you know it's crazy though? Right, yeah. All right, so we're in the line of work where it's very demanding. Yeah. We work with vulnerable families and adults, young people, deal with professionals. And in our line of work, talking of mental health, and I'm going to be honest, there's times I've struggled. It took me a minute to just be honest and say, bro, I'm struggling, because there's a thing called pride and ego. All right? And sometimes in the workplace, they'll say to you, if you need to talk to a counsellor or talk to someone, it's there. No, I'm all right, I'm okay. So
occupational health.
Yeah, that's right, so why is it when it's professionally, we sort of be the Superman or we can handle it, but then when it's on the personal level, I don't know, we're more inclined to say, I'm going through a bit of a bad time, or is it because we're just trying to be that champion for our caseloads I mean, how do we get that balance right? Because it's very, very difficult, you know, especially in the line of work we're in. In the line of work we're in, it's very demanding, you know. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, well, for me, my job's very demanding.
Do you... sorry, go on.
Yeah, sorry, Chris, but with what Rob is saying, you're right. Because I remember when I posted about that social worker who made an attempt on her life because actually her mental health was struggling, and I think as professionals being here, I think it's kind of the sort of thing whereby actually we think in the role that we're doing that we sometimes have all the answers. But when it comes to ourselves, we don't seek the support, even though we know what support we want to give to the families or children or the adults we're working with. But when it comes to us, actually, we don't. I'll be honest with you. I've never used occupational health. I haven't. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's not to say that there isn't times whereby actually, I'll be like, no, mentally, no, I'm just stressed and working, and the door is open for me to be able to go and use it, but I haven't. But I think, Rob, is what you were saying, that I think sometimes in, you know, we're talking about adult mental health, our line of work, what we do as professionals, I think our main focus a lot of the time is the service that we're giving to others. What ends up happening is that the professionals end up neglecting their own mental health as well because of what they're dealing with. Hence why you might have professionals who, like I said, who are, you know, might attempt suicide on their life. That's not because they've got a mental health condition, but actually the nature of the job role and what they're doing is demanded to the point that actually, you know what, they're feeling their mental health is way off. I can't actually go and do this anymore. It's kind of it's savior complex. That's what it is. Yeah, that we've got this savior complex for those who are working, but actually, you know what? For ourselves, we forget about us.
Yeah, because you know, I got this family member, and she always says to me, "If you don't do something about it, it will do something about you."
That's right.
Right? Yeah. Do you know? I'm actually gonna put that picture up. Remember the picture?
Yeah.
Right. So it's probably about 2 years ago, and having these headaches, thinking, what's going on? But at the time, probably had about a caseload of about 40 young people. I was doing other projects and other workloads. And sometimes your body's telling you, like, listen, calm down, yeah? But you're saying to your mind, nah, I'm okay. I kept having these headaches. I remember ringing Nana, saying, bruv, I've got these headaches, you know. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, so in the afternoon, my eye just got bigger and bigger and bigger. I was thinking, right, what's going on? Anyway, so I went to the hospital, and by the time I got to the hospital, my other eye was also big. I kid you not. If someone saw me, right, you been fighting? What's going on? Yeah,
You've been in a fight,
and they just said, no, you're stressed.
You're stressed. Yeah,
you're doing too much. Yeah, and then I took a week off work. After about 3 days, the eyes went down, but I was mentally drained. And sometimes you have to just listen to the body and say,
yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
take time out, you know.
It's true.
Do you know
Sorry,
what I mean?
I interrupted. Precious. Sorry.
No, I was kind of along the same lines of like when I think sometimes what happens is when you're working in these kind of areas, you're somebody who is probably inherently quite selfless and wants to help people. And then sometimes you probably come from a background in which your focus has always been on helping others rather than helping yourself. And so when you're in a professional sphere where your job is to help, your job is to think about other people and to provide that service, it's easier to get lost into that. Yeah. And then you take into consideration the risk that comes with your job. So if you're not on it, that means somebody else suffers because you're not on it. So you forget about yourself. There's that risk. Whereas in your personal life, there isn't that risk glaringly there. There isn't a manager saying, what's happening with this? What's doing this? There's not other teams pressuring you and asking you what's happening. You you're almost in your personal life, you're in the eye of the hurricane. You're in that quiet space where things can start to become a bit glaringly obvious. You're like, oh, I'm struggling. Whereas in the work, that is the hurricane. Everything's happening so fast. Yep. You're focusing, day to day is different. There's so much that your brain is taking in at one time that you don't really have the space to think about, oh, how am I coping? Until something pops up and you're like, oh, okay. It forces you to get into that middle of that hurricane and think about, oh, I'm having headaches. My body is telling me this is what's happening. And it's interesting because I had a similar thing in April last year where like I decided to I'm going to take a week off work. I'm going to just lay in bed and not do anything and just be chill.
Yeah.
And then did I not just get a whole week of tension headaches? I had to go to A&E 4 times.
Mad, hey,
I was like,
mad.
as soon as I decided to have a break, my body's like, oh, hold
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
It catches up with you. So it's important to look after yourself. And I think it's different because obviously in psychology we have supervision sessions.
Yeah.
And our supervision sessions aren't just about your workload. It's also about how are you doing. Like with my supervisor, I talk about a lot of things. I've had supervisions where I have been sobbing, crying hard because I am just struggling, and my supervisor is there to help me, and I'm telling her about my life, my actual life, like this is what's happening, and this because it affects your life, affects your job, just like your job affects your life. And if you don't have a space in which you feel comfortable enough to tell the person above you, like, I'm struggling, you're like, oh, it's fine, I'll just cope with it myself. So it builds up and builds up. And maybe maybe other career paths don't have that specific nature of supervision to be able to talk about all of those things. And that's not to say that all psychologists have that, because some supervisors aren't comfortable with those things, and maybe but that is inherently what you're supposed to use those sessions for, to talk about your work, but also talk about you as a person. Because you're bringing yourself to your work. You have to bring your empathy, your mind, your experiences. You're bringing everything to work. So it's not like in corporate where you can't really do that. You bring everything, and that can be really tiring.
And if you think about, we've been conditioned from like when we go to school and from families. I know for myself, coming from an Angolan background, that no matter what, you can't allow your personal life to interfere with your work. You need to be able to crack on and go and do your day, and then you can come home after and cry about it. So there was never any time to actually feel like, oh my God, I'm feeling really stressed under work, like I can't do this anymore. It was always in the back of my mind, no, Deandra, go into work, do what you have to do, and then once you're done and you come home, you can cry about it. That was always the thing that it was brought to my knowledge, and especially like family who do live back home, they're very much career driven. They don't care about personal life. It's like, just do what you have to do.
Get the grades.
Have a grip on things, get the grades, do whatever you have to do, and then you can sulk about it after. But there's no room for you to actually feel those emotions. So you've been conditioned from when you're in school, then you go to secondary school, college, university, you start work. When's the time to process? What do I need? So it does make it really difficult. And similar to Precious, I also do get the clinical supervision. The certain things that I spoke about with my clinical supervisor and my manager are two different things. I can actually sit with my clinical supervisor, and I've cried just like Precious has cried as well. I've spoken about things that's impacting me, and when I couldn't do a lot, I had that space to vent. But a lot of people don't have that space as well. Whereas with my manager, she wouldn't even know that, because in my mind, the first thing will go into, does she think I'm not capable to do my role? So then I would hold that back and be like, let me wait till next month when I have my clinical supervisor, so then I can actually tell her, I'm struggling, what do I do now? So there isn't much space, I don't think, for a lot of people. And then that conditioning of, you don't want to be seen as though you're not capable to do what you are supposed to do. So then you don't want to feel like you're letting yourself down, like you're not in the right profession because you can't cope on a day or a week, for example.
I've got two questions. So the first question I've got is, do you think as a society that we've become very much desensitized to mental health? So like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode that, there's times about I've been out on the bus or I've been on the high street and I've just seen someone and, like they might be, say, walking down the street half naked, talking to themselves, and we just go about our business, or they might be on the bus talking to themselves, and like people at the bus might just move further down. Have we become desensitized? Because I think we have. I think we're talking about it, we're doing awareness, but I think it's just so normal. What's your thoughts, panelists? Precious?
I'm going to say yes and no. I think when you come from a specific area and specific backgrounds, you're more likely to be desensitized about seeing somebody struggling on the street and seeing homelessness. But there are a lot of people who do not see that at all, who they go out, they're in, affluent communities, they're in places that are, they don't see that. So if they do see it, it's a big shock to them. I think it's a double thing. I think we've become desensitized to mental health conditions that seem as though there's no light at the end of the tunnel. So we've become desensitized at seeing somebody who we believe is kind of like a written off case now. There's not really much we can do for this person. Just hope that they can figure it out and survive long enough to just get to a certain age per se. But there are other sides when it comes to certain mental health conditions that we have given a platform, you know. So when it comes to things like anxiety and depression and all those kinds of conditions, we've given that a platform. So a little bit now, in some aspects, maybe a bit oversensitive in some areas of diagnosing people, and then also having space where people kind of over self-diagnose.
Right.
And so it's a bit of a double-edged sword of, yes, I think genuinely how we portray mental health illness in the media can be a little bit desensitized, because it can either be super, super extreme or doesn't really represent the reality of what someone's really going through. But then I think on a individual level, there is a lot of aspects where we become a little bit maybe overly sensitive, because now if something is happening and we're like, oh, I don't know, we almost panic. We go to Google and we start thinking, and then all of a sudden it's a thing. So I think it's a bit of both, but I do feel like, there is it's easier on social media maybe to overlook certain things and to just be like, oh, that's somebody else's issue until it hits home.
Yeah, because a lot of things are over-exaggerated. Like on social media, you'd see someone talking about, I don't know, bipolar. Now it's become the new trending topic recently. And you'd see how someone presents someone, like pretend to do these skits of how someone with bipolar presents. But that isn't the actual case. It's completely different. But people have this assumption, and then they try to make it in skits, or they try to make it into like these point of views, like a point of view, you've got bipolar and you're acting like this. But I feel like a lot of people, they don't really take into account or really see what is actually happening behind the doors.
That's right.
People just making their own assumption and just kind of going off of it, or people kind of laughing off at mental health.
Do you know, but it goes back to what I was saying earlier, and this is just my point of view. I just think we're in a time frame right now where dysfunction behaviour or daily dysfunction behaviour is now normalised. It's normalised, you hear someone getting stabbed. It's normalised, someone's on the number 2 bus, a woman walks on naked, everyone's just eating their crisps or reading their book. Right? It's standard. No one's not surprised anymore now. And that's the worry, is that this dysfunction behaviour, which is a serious behaviour. This is serious, guys. But it's normalised.
There's a lot of, I think it's I don't even know if normalised is really the right word. I think it's a lot of disassociation.
It could be as well.
And it's separating yourself, because in a way it's almost a trauma response of you've seen this, you've been worried, but you're seeing it over and over again. You disassociate because one, all right, cool. Let's say you do see somebody come onto the bus and they're naked and they're like really loud and aggressive. Okay, well, if I decide to get involved and help, what happens? What can really happen in that situation? Am I making it worse? Am I making it better? Am I at risk? Am I at danger in getting involved? What could be the potential risk management? And also most people don't have the skills to handle somebody who is in a mental health crisis. And so part of it is like, I understand, but also it's the whole other side of, they don't know what to do with somebody who's in a mental health crisis. And there's risks involved in getting involved. And sometimes it allows people to the space to disassociate. And if it's something that's continuously happening, that helplessness of there's nothing I as an individual can do. Like you see somebody get stabbed, you see, a lot of young people being stabbed, and you get to a point where it's like, I individually don't know what I can do to help this. So I'm going to turn off this news and I'm going to focus on the things that I actually have control over. And that allows for those things to continue.
I think as well, I know we're talking about adults, so young people now, they're stronger than we think, Right? Let's not, they're young, they're naive, but you see, mentally, they're stronger than we think, And you have to remember as well, as I said before, to them, it's normal behaviour. The children are not scared. No, this generation, they're not scared, And that's the worry. It's the lack of awareness, but it's also that they're not scared of seeing these things as well. And to them, because they tell me, it's normal, sir. Right, You remember back in the day, maybe about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you might be in your kitchen, there's this mental health incident or someone's got stabbed, whatnot. You're like, oh my gosh, is that what happened? Now, you're just making your tea and your biscuits in the corner as normal because you're not surprised anymore by what we hear or what we see. Just like coming from. And maybe, I don't know whether I'm using the wrong word. And that's why it's become normalised. Well, yeah, I wouldn't say normalised, but we're used to it now. We're not surprised anymore now.
And in that case, I would agree.
It's standard now. You know what I mean? And that's the concern. So it's almost like, okay, this is dysfunction behaviour. How do we spread the awareness? What do we do about the awareness? And you're right. I think in some parts of London, whether it's South London, so let's say like a Brixton or like a Hackney, whatever, whatnot. You know, a mostly Black African Caribbean with other ethnic groups. We see certain things. We see poverty. Yeah, we see a specific type of whether it's male or female of behaving in a certain way. And we just keep on walking.
Yeah.
Do you understand where I'm coming from? Like, we know you're going to see alcoholism, a man walking the street with alcohol or shouting, screaming.
Yeah,
you know you're going to see that.
Yeah.
But as you said earlier before, do we go up to that person and say, "Hi, sir," or "Hi, madam, are you okay? Can I help you?" But you know, if you go up there, either you're going to get shouted at, she's going to throw something at you,
or something else may happen.
Do you know what I mean?
And some people do that. I think it's, you know, a part of it. It's interesting because I think a part of younger people not being scared is actually good because it means they're more likely to hopefully understand that this is something that can happen and maybe have, because a lot of the times people have stopped helping because they are scared. They don't help because they're scared. So sometimes not being scared is actually a little bit of a strength to be able to help. But what's happening is that there's a disassociation of like, oh, it's not me. That's not my portion. I'm gonna just step away. And that's where the difficulty happens, unfortunately, because these are people who have slipped through the cracks. And they've slipped through those services or they've never had, or they didn't have anyone around them to help put them into services. And so they've slipped through the cracks as a result. And so that is that kind of, as I said before, that seeing somebody who you believe is at the end of the road, there is no light at the end of the tunnel for this person because they're so deep into whatever illness they're experiencing is, which is not always the truth.
But that's another problem as well. So I work with some adult clients, and they might ring up the GP, and the GP might say, we've got no space till March. You're thinking, what?
Just to get consultation. So even to get even just a consultation.
You understand?
You can't even get a consultation. Because that's how difficult it is.
It's a lack of information because you don't even have to go to your GP. You can go to IAPT.
And that's what people
don't
you know. People don't know about IAPT. People don't know about IAPT.
Of course, but this is what I'm saying is the problem is that people don't know there's different avenues. Now, for example, for the EIP, for early intervention psychosis, notoriously very difficult service to get access to unless you've experienced a crisis or unless your GP has done this and there's been referrals made. It's notoriously very difficult.